Okay, so we're live. Welcome back to the Magic Minds podcast. I'm Matt Bork. You're watching and listening to the Liberties #1 podcast. You up the Liberties, you up the flats. On the show today, I'm joined by the wonderful Eileen Flynn. Eileen, what's the crack?
Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks so much. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you over to my house again in Labrie since the last 5 years since we seen you. So, and it's lovely that people recognised you from the last time. So it's great to be able to have the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm always watching you on TikTok, so it's
Thanks. Guys, I was here 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Eileen was interview number 13. Invited me over to Labray Park. Is it Labray?
I call it Park Labray now, so it
Park.
sounds posher for taxis.
So if you're a taxi driver, it's Park Labray. It's not Labray Park. Yeah, I was over here 5 years ago. I've been dying to get Eileen back on. And it was funny. I was only talking about you last week that I was on the Sister Sheds because they asked me what was the best interview. I says I couldn't say the best, but the most impactful was this because of the compassion, the love, the kindness, in spite of the hardship that Eileen and the travelling community have endured over generations. But yet the love and the compassion and the empathy and the kindness that shone through in that interview was just incredible, and I've always wanted to interview you again. And life has changed for you since then, hasn't it?
Yeah, I got married, have two little girls. Billy, she's 4 in September, and Lacey is 2 in September. Also became a senator.
You're the Senate. You're a politician.
I know. I'm an ordinary politician, if there's such a thing. But I've been the first member of the traveller community to ever sit in Parliament, like in Dáil or Shannon, and that's just an absolute privilege. It comes with its challenges, and as I said to you a few days ago over a message was, I think I'm gone hard-hearted, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I've been 12 years challenging the system, really looking for meaningful change for the traveller community, for people from minority groups in general, and that change hasn't been, there's no end in sight, if you want, for that equality of opportunities for members of the traveller community within Irish society, and that can be very disheartening. So when I was speaking to you, that was one of my comments to you on the phone, and I think in this role I have my good days and my bad days of kind of how I think, will things ever get better for people from minority groups, for poor people in Irish society, and obviously for the traveller community too, and I'm in the Shannon, but I'm not just a traveller, and no traveller is just, no human being is just anything. We're human beings. I'm a mother, and people very rarely see that side of me. I'm a woman, I'm a member of the traveller community who's a serving a public representative as well, and I just think it's 2023 Ireland, and I'd love to see more equality of opportunity, because there's no such thing as equality or people being equal. We use that a lot, and we throw the word everyone is equal, everyone is the same. That's not the case. Everybody is different and have the rights to be different, but also we bring equal value to the world, and I think you know that as well, Matt, from working with people with disabilities. That's also a group of people. They're a group of human beings who don't have a fair chance in Irish society, unfortunately, and things just need to change. Sometimes I get really burnt out with the not seeing the progress, and doing the work and not seeing the meaningful change, because we can have change, but it needs to be meaningful to the communities. It needs to change for many people and not a few, because if change is just about me or just about you changing, well then that's not meaningful as change. It's not big change to a community.
Wow, jeez, I'd be speechless just listen to you. You speak from the heart. It's not from a book. It's not from something that you've studied in college. You're doing the work from the inside.
Yeah.
in regards to the travelling community or groups from ethnic minorities or marginalised groups.
And I will be very upfront and say, like, I don't speak on behalf of 40,000 travellers. I can't speak on behalf of 40,000 travellers. What I do is speak to my own life experience as a traveller woman who was born and reared in a hospital site. Yes, I live in Donegal now with my husband and my 2 children, but 3 days a week I stay here in this house, and I absolutely, saying it to you earlier as well, like, I love my family so much, and we've been through an awful lot together as a family. Like, my mother died when we were 10, my father died almost 12 years ago, and if you want to say, we reared each other, we looked after each other, and people would say, like, oh, travellers can't do this or that. Like, I married outside my community, and I'm no better or no less of a member of the traveller community because I chose the path that I wanted to live. And there's many travellers out there that want to live their own life as well as being a member of the traveller community. So you're right, we tackle it from the inside out and then the outside in, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
because
100%.
it's a constant, like, you're proving yourself constantly to your own community, and then you're trying to prove yourself outside as well. And we need to be open and honest, speaking about the internalised oppression, the externalised oppression too, the oppression that you get from the outside, but also the oppression that we have in the inside, that, some of the pressures that's put on, say, traveller women, traveller men, and, like, it's 2023 Ireland, and there's 86% of unemployment within the traveller community. A behaviour and attitude test was done in 2017, and over 80% of people wouldn't give a member of the traveller community a job. And since I was very young, I don't know if I said this in your last podcast or not, like, I was always ashamed of being a member of the traveller community. And when I say always, I mean from the age of 17 up until I was 24, 25. I'd always say I come from the travel, trying to minimise it, or trying to, because I was told that I was never good enough. Coming from a young woman who was in an accident, who spent a lot of her time in hospital. Now, nurses and doctors in Our Lady's Hospital was always very good and very kind to me, but just not feeling good enough in general in society from a very young age, and that can impact on you to where you reject yourself. And I'm very open about that, if you go up to a nightclub or to a pub with your friends, like, that was very hard, that rejection, constant, but again, you learn to deal with it, because you have no choice but to deal with it. You can let it bring you down, or you can let it build you up, but if you're going up, you go up with people and go up beside people, because you don't have to go up by yourself, if that makes any sense. So for me, like, I don't think the story defines who you are, who I am as a person, but what I will say is that to think back of the 18-year-old person that I was, and like, that shame, because society told me the travellers wasn't good enough. I told myself I wasn't good enough, do you know what I mean? And then when I was 25, I got involved in campaigns, now more so because I was involved with campaigns since I was 20 and 21, but that was only kind of, kind of opening up that kind of worms and sussing things out, and where do I belong in the world, what can I do in the world, and when I was 25, I just said, fuck it, like, fuck it, and that's it, like, if they don't accept me, once I accept me, and I remember standing up in Parnell Square, or was it Parnell Square, giving a talk, and I remember saying that, like, getting so emotional and saying, actually, we were never the problem. It was society that was the problem, and this is the whole thing, like, if you're a person with a disability, a member of the traveller community, or another, you're automatically, people are trying to put you in your box all the time. You're told you're not good enough, that you don't belong here, this is not your place. And even with employment, like, when I moved to Donegal, I applied for a job in the local youth centre, and I didn't get the job, but I got asked to command the board of management of the organisation. And I remember thinking, like, but on my CV, and then again I was rejected just because I was a member of the traveller community, I should have been working with my own people. I didn't have the qualifications to work with the ordinary population. And like if I had that back again, like it was 5 years ago, I would have challenged that very differently as how I would today, you know. And I think like in general, you know, we have to be a certain way to fit into society. And I'm totally against that. Like, you know, you can be yourself.
I'm a non-conformist.
Yeah, and you just remain like, stay true to yourself and to your values, you know.
Something popped out to me, you said at the start, we talked about, you know, the constant battle, like from our last interview to now, there's always this battling like stuff we talked about. I'll touch on that in a minute, the stuff we talked outside there about your family and stuff, which is amazing. How do you stop yourself from getting hardened? Because when we get hardened, when we get tempered, steeled, and we get desensitized maybe, how do you stop that? How do you keep your vision from narrowing where you can see more?
And keeping your cool as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, because a few weeks ago when I spoke out what happened with the taxi driver, the racism and the discrimination, you know, that was me being very angry and bringing me right back to that rejection again. Now, don't get me wrong, I've been refused entrance places since I was a senator, and you know what I mean, I'm not full of my own importance, because you have to be careful how you manage and deal with people on your way up and your friends, because you might need them on your way down. More than likely you'll need them on your way down, and that's how I view it, you know what I mean. And like, again, he wouldn't come in here into the site, and like you come in today in your little van, and you know, you had the crack there with a lot of my family members. You know,
love this place.
A little bit of crack with the horses.
And people remembered me and said hello to me, and just,
you know,
it's palatable. You can feel the love in here.
Yeah, and
which is good.
Like, people in the general population don't see that. You know what I mean? They open up a book and read what's been, or the papers, what's been said about travellers, or turn on the television and see my big fat gypsy wedding and think, oh, that's all travellers are like that. Like, even last weekend at the night show, there was a man on with me, and he was saying that, like, you know, traveller girls are taken out of school, and it was a load of bullshit, you know, because I was sitting beside him now, and I know I'm a 33-year-old woman, obviously. I wasn't taken out of school. Do you know what I mean? And like, there he was live on TV being like stereotypical. And that's when I kept my cool and saying, do you know something, like, I'm going to leave this gobshite speak for himself by not reacting to him, do you know? And I think sometimes we have to have hope, and even though I think like maybe I'm gone hard-hearted or whatnot, I do have hope, and I think you have to have hope, you know? Like, when I say hard-hearted, I mean, like, will things ever change? But I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I thought it wouldn't, you know? Because I believe that we sit around the tables, we have conversations, and even get rid of the table. Let's have honest conversations, because a lot of conflicts in the world, like wars and everything that we see, it's because people see things differently. You know, sometimes we're fighting for the one thing, but we see it from a different angle. So it's like that piece, it's like having a piece of cheese, a triangle piece of cheese. You're looking at it from one part, I'm looking at it from another, and somebody else is. So I just think there is a common ground that we can find, but the common ground looking for human rights and equality, that's very tough. You know, when you want traveller children to have equality of opportunity in education, when you want traveller women to be able to go and get their smear tests done, to be able to have access to services, vital life-saving services, you know, that should be there too for traveller women, for traveller men, the mental health supports also, and for all members of the traveller community. Like, a young man just said to you there, I was introduced and he said, Magic Minds podcast, and he was like, oh Jesus, so many people around here at Magic Minds, and what he was meaning was so many people around here and drugs, and that's in Ballyfermot in general, and it's in working class areas.
In my flats in the Liberties area, it's a huge amount. It's not
addiction is very, very tough, and like, you see it everywhere you go. Like, some people are very badly psychotic, and it's not their fault, you know, that kind of way. But like, we don't have, like, if you're rich, you can pay for rehab, you can pay for the supports that you need. But for poor people, it's that access, it's having that access. So even if you know that you have an addiction, but it's getting the access to the services. It's very very tough for people, and again, like, you know, talk about poor communities, working class communities. Like, we can't be in denial about people and drugs, and they're not criminals. You know, my colleague Senator Lynn Yuan has spoke about this for years and years, how people are not criminals. You know, we have to look at trauma that people has gone through, and a lot of the time I will say, I'm out of poverty, I'm okay, you know, I am okay, but the rest of my family here in Labrie are not out of poverty. The family, the surrounding area in Ballyfermot in general are not out of poverty. And like, again, you know, like, I have a degree, you know, like many people in Ballyfermot worked hard for their degree, you know, and trying to make something of your life. But again, no matter what you are, to some people I'll always just be the member of the traveller community, the pikey, the scummy knacker, and that's the sad reality of it, you know. And you have to learn to accept that there's so many people in the world that is trying to pull you down and drag you down, name calling, being hateful towards you, you know. But if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks at you, you'll never get to your destination. And that's how I see it. Like, that's how I see life now. Sometimes I will stop and throw a stone, like I did with that taxi driver, where I was really annoyed and I brought it into the Shannon. But that's a platform that I want to use for positive, you know, while I'm there with legislation as well. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a tough gig. Like, it's really tough job to have, you know.
Yeah, as I said before, I'm not just blowing smoke up your hole. I've done close to 150 interviews, and your interview was the most impactful for me, because you said to me, and I clearly remember sitting there, about people in prison, not the crime, what made them, what was the cause, and
problem.
to the root of the problem. I'm childhood trauma, sex abuse, violence, I've stolen, cheated and lied, but I'm not a bad person. I've done bad things.
Yeah.
But what was the driver? And as you say, is Lynn Ruan's getting the L's and the R's mixed up. What's the driver behind it all? Can we see them as human beings? Can we see them beyond their crimes?
There's one thing I'd have to say is that I don't think I would have I don't think I'd still be in the Shannon, and it's coming up to my 3 years, without having Lynn there. Those hugs sometimes in the chambers, you know, you reach over and give her a hug and everyone's kind of like, a day okay, you know. Very kind. Now, this is not even about Lynn, but Lynn gets it. And the same along with the other two women in the group, Alice Murray and Frances Black, they get it, you know. They may not have even had the same life experience as me and Lynn, but we're allowed to speak, and they always have our corner, you know, and that's important.
It's like they understand trauma. Like, you know, they understand pain, they know oppression, they know difficult, they know
Lynn
challenge.
brought that, like, before I ever was entered my foot into Leinster House, Lynn brought that, do you know what I mean? Lynn waking them up, if you want, you know, and me being there is a little bit of a different angle as well, like, you know, that kind of way, because me and Lynn often had our discussions, but no falling out, as true friends would have, and say, oh well, we agree or disagree, and it's around education, because I'm open to be proven wrong, and Lynn is the exact same. But I have to say, like, going forward around policy and legislation and stuff, like, I am looking in the Traveller Committee around the over-representation of the Traveller community in prison and the Traveller community in the justice system. Now, a lot of people who's watching your podcast, but I don't think this is your audience, that would say, well, that's what travellers deserve to be and blah blah blah. That's not true. Like, not every traveller is a criminal. You have some travellers that's criminals, like you have some settled people who are criminals, but we have to ask ourselves the question, again, Lynn opened up my eyes to this, what is a criminal? You know, what, like, I couldn't put my finger on, like, you know what I mean, there's different, and Lynn also speaks again around education. We educate, we rehabilitate people than locking people up. And like, in the women's prison, there's over 15% traveller women. That's overrepresented. The same in the men's prison, traveller men are overrepresented. And a young man said to me 3 years ago, Matt, 3 years ago, in this sit room, the fire was lit. we're watching something on the telly, and I love coming up to my family, getting the gossip from the, like my family would never call me Eileen anymore. They always say the senator. Do you know, like having the crack because just a bit of crack, like the senator, they'd be always saying, oh God, you'd have to run from the media and stuff. You know, having the crack with me, even when you come in here, I was saying to my sister, would you talk to the press? And they're like, no. You know, so I kind of messed back with them. But like he said to me, was his words, not mine. He was up in court for something, right? And he said to me, I'm up in court next week, God. And I said, oh well, you'll be alright, it's your first offence. Not trying to settle people down in their way of thinking, because I wouldn't like him to die by suicide or do anything dangerous to himself, you know, because he was up in court. And he looked at me, I'll never forget the look in his face. He goes, I'm already guilty. And I said, oh, like what do you mean? He goes, I'm guilty, he said, as soon as I walk into that courtroom, he said, because I'm a member of the Traveller community. And that stuck with me. And you know something, he's 100% right. It's like we've seen stories in all over the media over the years of people from different economic backgrounds straight away found guilty. Rich, rugby, they're able to get out. Now, I'm not the type of person that would say, oh, it's rich people that has the world fucked to a certain extent with the capitalism and everything else goes with it. Yeah, obviously. But what I mean is, like, say, women from upper class areas, men from upper class areas, you know, to give people from disadvantaged backgrounds a hand up. And I don't even like that word disadvantage, because you're putting the dis, you're making people feel less, you know. But I'd say like underprivileged backgrounds or whatever it may be, a hand up, you know, because we're not looking for handouts. And that's something I always say, like, you know, people just that opportunity, you know. And if my friend didn't come to me on the 15th of on February 2020, I'd never be here today. Him saying to me, actually, I think you've got a good opportunity. You can break down these barriers. You've broke down so many barriers already in society. And he was right, you know. And it wasn't about me as a person. And like, let's be honest, it's a good job to have. You know what I mean? I'm so privileged to be in there. Yeah. But I always say I'm not a one-trick pony. What I do to my heart is for travellers. You know what I mean? And the change doesn't happen overnight, Matt. And that there's the reality of it, like, you know. And there's a lot expected from you. Like, again, people forgetting that mother side, that person who you are too. Like, and the best job I have is a mother. You know, I like my two girls, and that's very tough. It's something I never speak about, is trying to balance it all out, because you know it's genuinely not possible to be a full-time public representative and a full-time mother. But I try my best, and Monday evening to Thursday evening I'm a full-time politician, you know, and sometimes it might be Tuesday to Thursday. But the job I love most when I go home on the Thursday evening is sitting with my children and speaking with my children, seeing how their week was, how their 4 days was, or whatever it may be. Talking to Billy about her Irish dancing, she's in Irish dancing, you know, about preschool, how is preschool. And every week when I go home, she has her pictures, and they all leave in the microwave. If not, she leave them in the car. Not in the microwave, but on top of the microwave. Or if not, she leave them in the car. And me and her will hang them up over the weekend, and I'll ask her questions about what her pictures is, you know. And sometimes maybe it's the traveller or me, or the working class woman that, like, in me, that kind of feel bad for creating a better life for my children, you know. In a sense, like, I do feel that level of guilt of leaving my children from the Tuesday to the Thursday, or maybe from the Monday to the Thursday. And I know it's to give them a better life, it's to create a better Ireland for them as well, you know. But I just love being a mother, absolutely. I love cooking dinners, I love getting them up out of bed, I love putting them to bed, reading stories with them. Now, I find technology very tough, even with Billy, like trying to get her off the tablet and stuff. But you know, I'm bringing them for little walks into the park and stuff. Like, all you can do, I think sometimes we're very tough on ourselves. All we can do is our best. You know,
100%. I just want to touch on something you said there about the being a full-time in the politician from Monday to Thursday and then being a parent. My thinking, right, you have your thoughts around why there's so many travellers in prison and people in prison. My thinking is trauma, right? Generational pain, generational hurt. And if you want to change that, you have to lead from the front and you have to do something different. So although you're sacrificing some family time, you're leading from the front. You're breaking generational pain. You're breaking ways of doing things by doing something different.
But I will say, like, obviously, I think, and any mother that's watching this, you're always a mother. Even at night time, you're always a mother. So what I mean is an active full-time mother. That's what I should say.
Yeah.
Which makes more sense because, you know, like sometimes, some nights I cannot sleep when I'm away from the kids, and I think that's the way it is for a lot of working.
You never break.
Yeah,
you might not be there, but you're still a mother and you're still.
Yeah, so I just think that's really important, you know, that kind of way. But I will say it is good even for, like, I see it even here, people being politically aware, having conversations, and like, when I go down, when I was even in Ballyfarm College, I'd come back and I'd say to my father, it could be even about caring for people, say, nature versus nurture and human growth and development. And I kind of bring that here. And like, I remember Daddy Lord Mercy Pan would say, oh God, what an Egypt, like, you know, that kind of way. And I always did voluntary work. And he'd always say, Eileen, if you work for nothing, you'll never be idled. And Lord Mercy Pan, he was always right. And I often wondered, you know, without like being too soft in this podcast, you know, would he be proud if he was here? You know, because he loved the politics. Lord Mercy Pan absolutely loved the politics. And he loved the GAA as well. Like, you know, like, just because we're travellers doesn't mean that we don't have interests as well, like, you know, and many travellers do, like, but my dad, I'll never ever forget, my daddy set me down to vote when I was 18, and he'd help me, this is who you're voting for, right? Now, I say it, I haven't really said it public yet, because I don't want to, but I went down and I voted for him anyway, and then I really woke up, do you know what I mean, because that kind of, like, you know, you use your voice as a woman and blah blah blah. But I must have been even about 22 when I found out what, like, you know, rights for women. Do you know, that kind of way, like, and what feminism mean, like, and like, every person I think have different views and different terms of language, and sometimes we can be too PC. But a feminist to me is somebody who wants equality for everybody, equality of opportunities for everybody, you know, for all genders, like, and you know what I mean, like, I also am very, like, realistic person too, you know what I mean, I understand, because of the community I'm from, it gave me so much life skills to understand people in general, you know, and a lot of the time, I think, Matt, that we forget ordinary working class people, you know, and poverty, and the level of poverty in this country, the level of homeless in this country. We've always, like, the traveller community has always had a homeless crisis, and I know some people may laugh at that and say, oh, well, they don't live in houses, blah blah blah. There's different, like, you know, to many travellers a trailer and is a home, like, you know, a caravan, like, and that's the thing about being in Leinster House too. You're a lot of people would say caravan, but in Ladbury or in other hot sites we say trailer. Do you know? And like, even my partner would say, oh, a trailer or something you put in the back of the car. I'm like, yeah, and it can be to have beds and toilets and everything else that goes with it too. And that's like what you call a caravan, we call a trailer. You know, that kind of way.
Right.
So it's it's been mind blowing, if you want, ups and downs.
What has been your greatest challenge since you went into Leinster House? Like, what's been your greatest?
Well, I'll tell you, the greatest challenge in the last 5 years for me was overcoming postnatal depression. That was the greatest challenge for me.
Wow.
To be out to,
I'm sure some women listeners out here be buzzing to hear this.
Yeah, it's
Thanks for
something
sharing that.
we don't talk about. It's you know, we don't have units or places. Now, it's not about concrete, it's not about the bricks and the water, it's about the services as well. But we've no really place that a woman and her newborn baby can go to that can be looked after, say, if it needs to be a year, 6 months, 6 weeks, or even 6 days, you know, that kind of way. I really struggled after I had my daughter Biddy, extremely, because I didn't feel good enough to be her mother, you know, and sometimes you still don't feel good enough, you know, and like you're trying to deal with that and stuff. But that was my biggest challenge, was overcoming that. And the Shannon also gave me a reason to feel I can do something, I can break down a barrier, you know, because for me being involved, and a lot of people say, well, if you have to campaign for something, it's not right, you know what I mean? But for me, that's my high, that's my buzz.
That's your purpose.
I love campaigning. I absolutely, I just love it, like, you know.
Did that help you get through it?
Yeah, my Billy was 5 months old when I first campaigned. I remember the pandemic and stuff, and to think like she's 4
What did you campaign for?
Campaigned for the Shannon. You know, I got 76 first person votes on my own accord, and that was phenomenal. Like, I wasn't expecting to get.
So
that.
what you're telling me is you battled your way of postnatal depression. You
and like
you chose the fight.
I did, but it was after I'm here for a reason. It was after a suicide attempt, and I won't be going into it for the purpose of the podcast,
that's enough.
because
We don't need to. We don't need blood and guts. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
So
voyeurism is not my thing. But the fact that you saying that for a woman to hear you, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think it's important.
Hello.
Hey Sally.
How are you getting on, guys?
Good, we're at a live podcast at the moment, but it's okay. Come on in and.
Sure, say hello. Hi all.
Yeah. So that's where that.
So that was a really tough battle for you. So you had your experience, and then you decided, you know what, I'm gonna fight my way over.
Yeah, and again, like, life shouldn't have to be a battle. Do you know what I mean? But the supports, I don't believe the supports are there for women with postnatal depression, and this is something we need to be loud about, because, you know, talk about period poverty, right?
Yeah.
And that's not going to fix the big issues for women's inequalities in this country, you know, and some services for women, like, you know, and many poor women, like, that's an argument that I agree with, you know, the free sanitary towns and all that kind of stuff for women. Great, good to have it. That's a charity model. You know, we need to empower women. It's not about putting a packet of tampons into every woman's toilet in the country. You know, it's really about providing services for women with postnatal depression. Vicky feeling broke through the glass around the whole cervical check and stuff. And again, I've had experience around that in the last year, you know, and like, my GP saved me life, really. And again, it's just absolutely remarkable when we talk about equality and equality of opportunities. You know, our politicians and, like, do you know what I mean, we'll fix period poverty, when an ordinary poor woman is not even on that line thinking about, like, you know, she needs, like, access to services. And around the postnatal depression, I was afraid to reach out to my GP at the time. I was afraid to reach out to the nurses in the maternity ward or whatever else goes with it, because I was afraid my child would be took off me, because I loved her, like, so much, and I was just a traveller. Do you know, and there's many traveller women, and it's something we don't talk about within our community either. So it's just, it's if you want to say, it's, you know, it's not about giving to the poor and, like, silly things, like, and that's, when I say, like, silly things, I mean, you know, it was something, like, I never came from a big wealthy family or anything, but I never, and I've heard other people saying it from working class communities as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, while it's good to do that and have free sanitary towels and tampons for women in toilets, whatever, you know, like, why can't you not also invest in women's health? Do you know? And I just think that's something that we need to discuss.
You can go a little deeper with this.
Yeah, and I just think it's like, if you see, look back at my record, I've said it numerous times in the Shannon, it's a good old argument and stuff, but I'd rather see them, you know, in making sure poor women are getting their cervical checks done every year, for traveller women to not think, gosh, that doesn't include me, I'm okay, you know, for women to have good services in this country. And so I think that's something they should focus on, you know. And this whole thing around the gender quotas, employment and for political parties. We need gender quotas, yeah. But if we're doing gender quotas, we have to include the women with disabilities. We have to include traveller women, black and brown women, women of colour. Like, you know, so who's the women equality for?
Yeah.
You know, and I just think that's really important, that we need to be, and again, when we talk about men at the top, you know, from the top down, the men, but where's the traveller men at the top? Where's the black men at the top? I haven't seen one traveller man in Leinster House. I haven't seen one black man in Leinster House as in serving in as a public representative. You know, so we really need, like, we've a long way to go, you know. And I think, like, a man with a disability have a right to be in the Shannon.
Of course.
You know what I mean? As a traveller man has a right to be in the Shannon or in the Dáil too. But there's, again, the men, like, I just think they jump on bandwagons, the sexy conversations, as I like to call them, you know, women's rights. But where's the traveller women? Where's the traveller men in these rights? Where's the black men in these rights? The refugee men? And that's just, you know, like, because you have a disability doesn't mean that you don't have a mind, you know, like, it doesn't mean that you don't have your own way of thinking and that you shouldn't be heard, because we all deserve a right to be heard and to be able to thrive and be who we want to be, you know, that kind of way, and with the right opportunities, like, and that's all travellers need, is the right opportunities. Because I know many travellers that works in nursing homes, hospitals, that's doctors, solicitors, you know, like, we want to play our equal part in society, but society has to leave us do that. And, you know, we're good enough, like, we've shown that through the years and years.
Wow, unreal. What has been your most enjoyable moments within the Shannon that you've done some great work? We had a conversation out there.
In the last 5 years, if you had said to me at the end of our last podcast, you're going to be a senator, I tell you where to go. You know, and I think that was an amazing victory actually for Ireland, and for me personally, but also for Ireland as a country too, you know, because we are the indigenous people of this country, you know, and, like, I know a lot of people might say, but I remember one time actually a woman said to me that was doing an interview saying, travellers never give up their soul. And I don't think we did. And that gives me an awful lot of pride, saying, you know something, we're such a resilient community, we're still here, we're strong, you know, that kind of way. And that whole thing, like, when I was in Maynooth University, I wanted to do my thesis on can a traveller be Taoiseach and live in a hot and site, and I didn't have enough evidence obviously to back it up, blah blah blah. But, you know, like, to think I'm in there now as a public representative, as a senator, and I'm actually living in a hot and site, like, in 3 days a week, you know, I have the best of both worlds if you want. And it's just absolutely, that's some change. Like, what a traveller woman said to me from an organisation, if you sat in your ass 3 days a week and did fuck all for the next 5 years, she said, which I know wouldn't be in you, you've still made change. And I don't think I made that change by myself, Matt. I know that change was made with people from other ethnic minority groups too, and that change is for us, not for me. Do you know what I mean? And it's for our kids as well.
Like, just think about the effect that you're having on society, not just the travelling community or marginalised group. Me, somebody from, just as you, as say, just the normal population or the ordinary population, like, you had an incredible impact on my heart. You inspired me. I just rocked up here to this interview and I've never forgot it. So can you imagine the people out there that you have touched and inspired?
See, this is where I'm queer, if you want, right? We always use the word queer as in being like different, and I'm very queer when people say to me, you're doing a good job, or that was very good. How I don't like being complimented, and I think that's an Irish thing in
Shut the fuck up!
Because you're like, oh God, you know, that kind of way. I'd be so embarrassed, and I could talk in front of thousands of people, but I suffer extreme bad anxiety.
I totally understand.
And
that.
if a person comes up to me after something and say, oh, you're doing a good job, I'm always there, thanks very much. And my thing is, where the fuck is the exit? How do I get out of here? You know, and that's not that I'm not a people person or anything. It's just, I find it.
You're not used to praise.
I just find it
I'm like
tough.
that as well.
Yeah, I
People
find
come say to me about the podcast and you inspire me, and I cringe. I'm like, oh Jesus.
Yeah.
But realistically,
But I look at Lynn then, like, where I think she has got to a point for saying, no, actually, I'm going to say thank you, and I am good at my job.
yeah.
You know, because I
Brilliant.
seen her in a documentary here a few weeks ago, and she was like, I'm a really good senator, which she absolutely is, you know,
Yeah.
but being able to own it and say it, like,
I
and
was
again,
at that point as well, like you are years ago. I didn't believe, and people say, "Oh, you do a great job." Now I go, "Yeah, do you know what I am? I'm a good." I used to think I was a horrible, scruffy, ugly, dirty bastard.
because society told
Because
you what.
people around me told me that.
Yeah.
Now I don't believe any of that. And when people say to me, "Oh, you did a great job," you know, I'm like, "Oh yeah, thanks."
But you know, all you can do is your best, you know.
Yeah.
And people will criticize you. Like I get it. Like sometimes on social media, I'm called the drug addict or called really horrible names. You know, that kind of way. And people say you're not smart enough, blah blah blah. And that sometimes can kind of get in you. You know, that kind of way. But for me, I'm like, you know, fuck off. That's my answer to that stuff. Like just, you know,
Get the bricks out and throw them at the dogs.
and I'm just like, you know, that's fine, like, because you have to really bring it back and say, actually, the problem is not you, the problem is the person, you know what I mean? And you can't control how people think about you. You can't control their opinion of you, you know? All you can do is your best, and that's it, like, you give it your best. And I was in the school yesterday with Leaving Cert students, and I was saying to them, give it your best. You know, if you get 100 points, fair play to you. You give it all you could give it. If you get 600 points, fair play to you. It's not going to define you.
Love that.
You know, that kind of way. It's not going to define you as a person, because if I'm looking for a job now, no one gives a damn about me leaving cert. As a 33-year-old, you know what I mean? When I go back to work in the National Traveller Women's Forum after the Shannon or whatever, you know, like, you still remain true to yourself, you know, like, and these roles and these positions that you have in the world, like, you know, they change all the time. Like, you can go from, like, I was working this time 3 years ago in the National Traveller Women's Forum. I was on maternity leave, you know, that kind of way. And it's just, yeah, it's just remarkable how life is, you know.
And you haven't changed, although you now have
Actually,
a title.
it's
You're a senator.
It's so strange, Matt, because next month will be 5 years and the dot.
Yeah.
And in the last interview I had to hear in 2 flats too. And I was getting ready for the wedding and stuff in August, you know, and now, like, I have 2 flats in the hair.
But, like, you haven't changed, like, the way you speak, your authenticity from your heart, your energy, nothing has changed about you. There's no even notion that you're in the Senate.
But you know what is...
Which is fucking deadly. Well, that's what I love about you.
But you know what's actually strange is that, like, people would this is a very common question I get asked, do you ever feel less? Do you ever feel people treat you different, blah, blah, blah. I'm okay with that, you know? Like, I'm not an academic to the highest core. I don't have a degree in law or anything. So I'm constantly learning, and I'm absolutely... How privileged am I to learn all of the time as a 33-year-old woman? Because when you think you know it all, like, you know, you're so full of your own importance that, you know, you're actually silly more so than clever.
Love it.
But like, and I used to go in and be like, oh God, all these people are all so educated and this and that. But I'm also educated, you know, and they have what I don't have, and I have what they don't have, which is very important.
Someone said that to me when I was in the hospital. I felt like that because they were all middle class people with degrees and that. And someone says to me, you have degrees, but they also don't have what you have, and which is your working class attitude, your personality.
As well as that, like, we're real, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We know what it's like. We know exactly what it's like to go, like, and to be struggling, to be on the margins of society. We know that. We lived that experience. They didn't, you know? A lot of them didn't, to be fair. A lot of them didn't. And I think do you know what I mean? Again, like, I have sociable skills. Like, I can walk in anywhere and speak to people.
Yeah.
I can find my way through the world by just speaking to people. Even if I didn't speak the language, I'd find some way of communicating because I'm not afraid of people, you know? Now, even though we talk about rejection and stuff, but I'm not afraid of people. Do you know, I'm not afraid of saying, actually, do you know, I don't know where I'm going. You wouldn't be able to give me directions, would you please? If I needed them, like, you know, I'd be clever enough in that regard, where I don't think they would have, like, they'd be so, so intelligent that I don't ask for directions. I know myself, and I'd figure it out as well. you know. And sometimes, sometimes it takes you longer to get to your destination, but that's okay. You know, like I see this quote on Facebook or a few years ago, we all boil at different degrees, you know what I mean? And that's just any human being, like, you know, again, we're not all at the same level, and nor should we be, because I know there's not, like, apart from Lynn, as I say, but like emotionally intelligent. You need to have that. You need to be socially intelligent.
Social intelligence, emotional intelligence.
They're my two big ones
Mine
that I
too.
would have. And like, you know, and academically, yeah, I'd have it if I have to have it. But I want to be real with people. Like, I get slagged off by some gobshites when I say things has got worster. And I got such a hard time because I used the word worster in the Shannons, because it wasn't in the English dictionary. I don't care about the English dictionary. I wasn't meant to speak English one way or the other. I was meant to speak Irish if you want or can't, you know. So, like, English is more so second language to me anyway. So, but I wasn't meant to know the English dictionary inside and out. And Worcester is a term that we use here in this house.
Yeah.
And like, I actually remember putting in our WhatsApp group, Billy, about maybe it could have been even a year ago, making Rice Krispie cakes, and she put her finger in the bowl to eat some, right? And it was a lovely video, so I put in the WhatsApp group, like myself and Lynn, Francis and Alice Murray, and I put in that at the CEG group saying I would have loved to put this one on social media, but I can't because I said bowl. And Lynn wrote back a voice message saying to me, so what, whatever you bleed and say, it doesn't matter, you know, remain true to yourself and to your own way that you talk.
Stay
you know,
authentic.
And that was it. So I put it on social media, you know, and that, like, sometimes
It's real.
you just need that direction, or you need that advice from someone who you know you can trust, and who you love as well, you know, that kind of way. And that was very, like, and sometimes even last week when I was giving a statement on the reform of the Shannons, the bill that was done up by Senator Higgins, Lynn, myself and Francis, but, like, you know, Alice Murray is just such a great legislator, like, she's such a whiz when it comes to ins and outs of legislation, you know, she's just fantastic. And I was given a few points, and I sat back down. I remember looking at Frances Black saying, oh, fuck's sake. And she goes, what's wrong with you? I said canvassing. No, what was it? I said canvassing instead of saying campaigning. And I said, oh, fucking hell, like, now it's going to be a big backlash to this. And Alice Murray and Francis was like, will you sit down and pass no attention to what they're going to say? And they're right, like, but sometimes, you know, like, it, whatever it is with the old abuse sometimes online, it happens so regularly. Do you know what I mean? Like, being caught names because of the community that you're from. And, like, you have your good days, you have your bad days, and then you have your knockbacks, but I do believe they make you stronger. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like yourself, I don't know what your struggle was like for you, only from what I hear, but what it does, my pain is now my potion, just like you. We use that. Our resilience is about bouncing back, bouncing forward, and you epitomise that. You bounce forward. You know, that tough time now you lead. Like you said to me out in the kitchen there about your family. You know, you married a salesman, you in the Shannon, a few other things you said to me, but your family never
rejected me.
Never rejected you.
No.
They never, and you can feel the love in here, and it's fucking deadly.
Yeah, but I always grew up, I always, you know, my fashion, my, you know, like, I always just lived my life as Eileen, you know, and I was very lucky with the people I met in my life, the likes of Damien Pilo, who, like, Damien is, and he'll kill me over this, but he's in his mid-50s, like, and, like, do you know, to say that, like, he's my best friend, someone that I could trust with anything, and, you know, he'd never tell me what to do. It's always about thinking for yourself, and people like that, like, are very good in your life, and I had those kind of opportunities with the likes of Ballyfarmer Travellers Action Project, with Lorraine McMadden, with the best of community development workers in Maynooth University. I had a great teacher, she was actually a psychotherapist, she still is a psychotherapist.
Who is she?
Kathleen Noonan. Kathleen Noon from she does a lot of work in Kilcock. And she was my lifesaver in one sense. When I went to did a course in Ballyfarm College, caring for people with special needs, and that's my whole thing. Like, I wanted to work with people with special needs. I wanted to work with people in a caring capacity too. And people say that empathy and compassion, but that's first. You know what I mean? That's first. And like, you know, not because of the accident. Maybe it was because of the accident I was in. Maybe it was because I lost my parents at a young age. I don't know. But, you know, I think that's a skill within itself, being able to empathise with people, you know, because a lot of the time, Matt, people don't need your help, you know. People need you to try and understand. You may never fully understand, you know. And this whole thing about, I'm going to help such a one, I'd like to help the poor, I'd like to help the homeless, you know, support people. People may need support to do things for themselves.
Empower people.
Yeah, because we can disable people. And I didn't know, like, I always thought disabled, if you want, was a horrible word to use against people with disabilities. And since being on the Disability Matters Committee, I learned that society disables people with disabilities. It's society that does that, and it just makes sense to me now. You know, I'm really, really lucky with the opportunities that I had in my life. I am, and I'm really lucky with the people that I've had in my life, and that's the God honest truth. Like, you know, people who work in organisations, like I can reach out to people, and I'm not shy in reaching out to people who are my friends, people I know I can get support of, and I, like, you know, again in the Shannon, knowing that Lynn, I'm in number 20 in the seat right beside the window, and I'm very cold, like the coldest person in history. I'm always with blankets, even like, you know, if I'm going up and down the car, whatever, I blanket over the legs like an old granny, but I don't mind. And Lynn is number 19, you know, like, and sometimes we'd sit in random seats or whatever, but you know, it's just, it's having that connection. Yeah. And it's okay, because it's alright to get things wrong too, you know. And like, I've been on different sides of arguments and stuff, and I like that about myself. I like that, the whole fact that, you know, I can change my perspective and stuff when I know that I'm wrong, you know. And what I mean by that, like, and I know a lot of, like, you know, I don't want to be controversial or be anyway, but when I was 18, when I went into Trinity College and stuff, I remember taking part in a debate, and I was anti-choice, you know, and it was so easy to be anti-choice. And then as I got older and I was educated and I learnt more about, you know, women's rights and reproductive health care, I was like, oh my God, you know, even though I still have my choice, you know, that if I'm anti-choice about me, myself, my own personal choice, if I vote for choice, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it doesn't take anything away from me.
Brilliant.
And that was how I seen it. And I said, like, I want to support women, that I'm not here to judge and say you did a mortally wrong thing or whatever else that goes with that, because that woman has to deal with that for the rest of her life, you know. So why am I going to make anyone's life tough for them, you know? And again, it was the people I associate with, and I will not be one that will be told, actually, this is what you should believe in. I make up my own mind, and my life has shown me that over the years. And I will say with a lot of pride, I wasn't right when I was 18, 19, 20, when it came to repeal. I wasn't like, you know what I mean? But I'm glad that I was educated, and I wanted to be educated, you know, and it's just, I just think it's okay to get things wrong, and it's all, like, you know.
It's powerful to say, I don't know, I got it wrong, help me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what you were saying there is, you're okay with it being vulnerable.
Yeah.
You're so strong that you're willing to admit you're wrong. And
I've got no problem in saying to, if I didn't understand it now, you know. And I think in the last 3 years I have thrived as a legislator, you know, to understand it. Like, I remember being like 25 when I first knew who Lynn even was, and she putting herself up for elections in the college and stuff. She came into Minute, and I was like, Shannon, what does that do? Like, and I was 25 years of age, like, that's not even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of ordinary people don't care what they do in Leinster House.
I haven't a clue. I couldn't believe that you work so hard. I was like, what?
Yeah, but
No disrespect to you. You were like, I work all these hours, and your sister was saying, I was like, fuck me, I thought they all just sit around doing nothing.
well,
But that's not
a
like
lot of
you.
them do. A lot of them do.
Trying to name a few names there.
But I have to say, like, again, you know, in our group, we've got completely different personalities. We're
Yeah.
4 women, similar but different interests as well. And what I love is, like, you know, like, just I'll use one example, the climate change. Alice Murray just phenomenal in it, right? Where I'm like, actually, where's the poor people in these conversations? And then like, we're bringing all that together, you know, that kind of way. And it's absolutely brilliant because we're able to bounce off each other. We're able to, and I know, like, even years ago, Lynn would have said in the Shannon too, you know, poor people around climate change, like, you know, like, and 100% right. Like, a lot of people don't give a damn about recycling because the roof is probably falling in on top of them with dampness or whatever else goes with that, you know, or probably struggling about even the paper bins or whatever. So again, like, we need to bring back that conversation where that's inclusive because Alice Murray makes sure it's inclusive. You know, the legalisation of drugs that Lynn is trying to do, we all make sure that's inclusive as well. And we just support each other, like Frances with the Palestine stuff that Frances does. You know, we educate each other, and we're not afraid of that as a little group in the Shannons. You know what I mean? And that's absolutely really important. Like, you know, and I just, like, we're all as mad as each other in our own ways. You know, that kind of way. Like, and even the dressing, like, you know, I remember this time last year actually come up with me stories. Lynn comes in and I'm looking at her with a pair of purple sliders and a pair of stockings and with them. I wear them myself around Donegal or whatever, but I'd be like, I remember looking and thinking, oh my God, what the hell are you doing with them sliders and just like,
She didn't give a fuck.
No, it's grand, like, you know, I wear my sliders and that's how it should be.
That's
you know,
great.
that kind of way. It's not about being like you have to dress a certain way, speak a certain way. It doesn't make you less educated than because we all come from different communities. We, like, you know, different dialect if you want. You know what I mean? And I think it's important that like we do remain true to ourselves, you know. And again, going back, like, even in college and stuff, like, I'm so privileged with the people I met, like, in, you know, and to be fair, I got on very well, you know, in civil with other politicians.
Civil. So just put that out there.
With all, like, the majority of politicians in Leinster House. And the reason for that is, like, you know, my eldest sister would always say, as bad as you are when you're in with a person, you know what's going on. But when you're out with them or you fall out with them, you know, fuck off. And I love that, like, so you have conversations with, and you know, one thing I will say that I learned in, like, you know, a lot of politicians are not in there for wrong reasons. Like, they genuinely believe they're in there for the right reasons, you know, that kind of way. And you know, I get on very well also with Thomas Pringle. Like, Thomas just, you know, Thomas never fails, but like Lynn again or Alice Murray or Frances, Thomas never fails but to make me laugh. You know, he's just down to earth, good, really good person, and like that. Like, even sometimes I'd come up with Thomas, you know, and we're having a conversation about the hate crime legislation just yesterday, like, you know, and I was saying, like, I don't want poor people being locked up, or, you know, people from the traveller community or people of colour or whatever, like, you know, just teasing it all out. And he goes, well, they're already getting locked up. And, like, but that made sense to me, because if you look at the overrepresentation in our prisons, like, he's like, I know what you're saying, Eileen, but this is the reality on the ground, and it's something you always talk about anyway. And like you, I went into convulsions of laughing, but it wasn't said from a bad place.
No,
like,
he's
saying that, like, these
Point
people are
obvious,
already targeted anyway. So by having the hate crime legislation, is not going to make the target what happens to some communities any less. And that was it, like, and I remember that year I was like, you know, I went and I had a little giggle at it, and I'm like, but you're fucking right.
Yeah, we're not laughing at these people, by the way.
Like, I just
locked
think
up.
it's, you know, sometimes we cry with the truth, or we might laugh at the truth.
It's so ridiculously obvious.
Yeah, because it's so obvious, you know, that kind of way, like, and that's just, you know, so overall my experience has been good, but I'm very lucky. I'm really lucky with the people I have in my life and the experience I've had. While a lot of it was hardship, like, you know, I remember actually I could tell you one last story. I remember a minister saying to me, "You're always in a rush, you always look stressed and blah blah blah." And I said it to Lynn. I said, you know, like, minister said to me, I always look stressed and I'm always in a rush and always whatever. She goes, I tell him, she said, that there was hardships. And again, like, I remember going in convulsions of laughing and saying, actually, you know, she's right, like, you know, and trying to work with people and stuff. And I think sometimes when you can, is to have a bit of humour as well, you know, that kind of way. So, and it's good to have that, like, and it's good to build up relationships with people, you know, like, I could go in now and I'd be the first to say to, you know, the way people would say, sure, I talk to travellers, I talk to black people, I talk to everybody, sure, like, they're just like us, you know, that kind of way. I go in now and I say, sure, I talk to the politicians, you know, like, and you know, it's like the tables have turned a little bit, you know. I'm like, I'm not sure, I'll talk to them, like, you know. And when I say that to people, they laugh at me, but that's me trying to put the shoe on the other foot and stuff, you know. But again, Matt, like, I think when we use humour, it's how it's used and when it's used and appropriate, but it's not to hurt anybody. Because, like, for me yesterday, I was saying, like, you know, like, I'd be afraid of any legislation that's just going to make life tougher for travellers, blah blah, or for other minority groups. And the reality is, it wouldn't, you know, like, because life is already tough for people from minority groups to a certain extent. But overall, life has been, you know, everything can be better.
Of course,
you know, and there's always room for improvement, and no matter who you are, or no matter what you are, no matter what it is you're doing in life.
And you're leading the change.
I'm just saying that things are good, you know, I'm still alive, pretty much just.
Like you said about your hearts, or like you tough enough, I don't see that. I get what you mean, and the struggle is hard, but your heart is as big as it was 5 years ago. If anything, you've got more powerful in the sense you've grown to nearly to your potential, but you're just an infinite potential. You're a powerhouse, you know. And I know that's probably cringe for you. I just think you're an incredible human being.
It's you know, if I died tomorrow, which I hope not anyway, but if I died tomorrow, it's leaving that legacy for my children too.
Yeah, you're leading from the front. You're breaking generational pain. You're letting go of the social norms that women can't be empowered, traveling women can't be empowered, people of marginalised groups can't be empowered. You're smashing that. What's the one thing you would like people to take away after listening to this interview?
I think that whole human, you know, and that whole, like, live and let live, you know, and I just think that's so important. Because, like, I think of lyrics of songs of the live and let live, and Aslan, Christy Dignan, and I know that he's very sick at the moment, you know, which, like, another person from an ordinary working class family that had his own struggles in his life, and this crazy world. I think, you know, like, it is about trying to look after each other and protect each other in this crazy world that we're living in, you know. And people will tell you what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, and how you're not good enough, really. And that's just unfortunate that there's the world that we're living in. Like, everything is a competition, examinations for college, for money, and all these big issues that we have, you know. But I really think, like, don't let anybody tell you who you are. What I said to your man on the Tonight Show last week, I was like, actually, you know, I won't allow you to tell me that I'm not a different race, I'm not a different nationality, I'm not like, I'm a member of the traveller community and we are different and I'm okay with that. Like, you know, it took me years to be okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you take that away now.
Yeah.
And again, all we can do in this life is give it our best shot, you know. And again, quote I seen recently, like, you know, people say you only have one life, you know, you live every day, you like, you know, and you die once, you know, and I just think we really need to be able to, I don't know, like my mother used to say, if she couldn't do someone a good turn, she wouldn't do them a bad one, you know, and I think it's a little, you know, trying to be kind to each other, and sometimes it's actually tough to be kind, you know, because like sometimes when I'm sitting it, like I don't know, I don't want to really be, but like sometimes you ever see the ad or do you ever see the Simpsons where Homer's grabbing Bart by the neck and saying to him, really cop the fuck on, or you're being like, there's one or two of them in there that I could be like, oh my goodness, like, you know, wake up.
People think that kindness is nice and soft. Sometimes kindness and compassion is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, and
it's
like,
easy to go, fuck you, shut the fuck up, get angry and smash things up. That's easy for me.
100 times there's one certain politician, senator that I'm like, oh my god, is she for real, or do you know, that kind of way, but she's just doing her job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, while they're racist or being discriminated against people, they're just doing their job.
Yeah.
But if on the other hand, if that's me, I'm rising trouble again, I'm a troublemaker, you know. And like sometimes it can take some amount of gut, and again, like being in the Shannon, like there was a time where I'd say, okay, if this person is going to say something bad about LGBTQI plus, I'm going to get up and I'm going to say no, blah blah blah, and then you just learn to deal with, actually that person is not worth my fucking energy, you know, that kind of way. And I think that's kind of, again, I only, like, you know, you learn as you go, and for people to take away that, like when I first got into the Shannon, like I was really faking it till I met it, you know what I mean, like, and again, it takes guts, I think, if you're from a marginalised community, to actually believe that you're good enough to be here.
You are.
You know what I mean? And I think that takes guts. Now, I haven't got to that whole place yet where I know I'm a good senator and I'm doing a good job and stuff. I think I'm doing the best I can do right now as a mother with two very young children, and trying to, you know, just spread myself as much as possible with organisations and trying to work with organisations and on key issues as well. And I don't want to jump on every bandwagon, you know, because we don't have to fight every argument. Exactly. And I'll end it with that.
Yup. You're an incredible, I know you find this cringy and I know it's hard for you. You're an incredible human being. I'm so privileged to be here, just to be in your presence. You're just deadly. I love you.
And up the flats.
Yup, the fucking flats. Yup, the Halton size. Guys, look, all the Eileen embodies all the Magic Minds here. Stories of the power to inspire. She doesn't just talk about it, she lives it. She embodies it. She goes out there. She's on the front. She's leading the way for women, for people in marginalised groups, people from working class, from ethnic minorities. She's doing the fucking all. She could go around here on a fucking unicycle and juggle at the same time, I think. Thanks very much for watching and listening. Please be kind. Just be kind. As my mentor Jeff Thompson says, be kind. The only difference in our crimes is a degree. We've all have done something wrong, so let go of the judgment. Be kind. He who's not seen cast the first stone. Thanks very much for watching and listening. Please share this with family and friends. It's an incredible interview. All my interviews are brought to you by Noel Riley from Rooney Media Graphics. You want any graphic design work done, he's your man. The girls in Shannon's Hope Line mental health powerhouses in the Liberties. Give them a follow, check out the work. Please donate if you can. The Liberty Super Run doing amazing work. Anyone else we can say thanks to? Anyone else?
I just think, you know, the homeless organisations that will go out and
Liberty Super Run, yeah,
people on our streets, and again work with people with addictions as well, because in the Liberties, in Ballyfermot, in working class areas, the addiction, and I think that's just really, really, like, you know, caring for people and seeing beyond addiction. So I like to thank people for that, for seeing me out.
Jelly. Guys, thanks very much. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and as always, mind your little self. You up the flats, you up the Park Lambra.
I will run, I will climb, I will soar. I'm undefeated. Oh, jumping out of my skin, pull the cord. Yeah, I believe it. Oh, the past is everything we were. Don't make us who we are. So I'll dream until I make it real, and all I see is stars. It's not until you fall that you fly. When your dreams come alive, you're unstoppable. Take a shot, chase the sun, find the beautiful. We will glow in the dark, turning dust to gold, and we'll dream